blessing descend upon us here in this House Assembly. Grant us that we may treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner, to promote thy honor and glory, to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of this country, and of those whose interests thou hast committed to our charge. Amen.
Which says that when estimates of the expenditure have been approved by the National
There is
Assembly,
a communication from the chair.
appropriation bill shall be introduced in the National Assembly for the issue from the consolidated fund, the consolidated fund of the sums necessary to meet that expenditure.
Other than both sides of this House, extend our appreciation to Her Excellency the Vice President and Minister of Women's Affairs for the finding time to grace the 2013 budget speech. Similarly, I recognize the presence of the Secretary General and Head of Civil Service, as well as Cabinet Ministers and senior government officials here present. My appreciation also goes to members of the Diplomatic and Consular Corps, religious leaders, the Gambia Bar Association, members of the press, and all distinguished invitees who are present here today to grace the 2012 budget speech, that is, laying of the 2013 appropriation bill. Your presence here clearly demonstrates your interest and commitment to the development of this great nation. Once again, I welcome you all and thank you for your attendance. May I now call upon the Honorable Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs to deliver the budget speech and the appropriation bill 2013. Honorable Minister.
Bill, the appropriation bill 2013, budget speech to be delivered by the Honorable Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the bill entitled An Act to Provide for the Services of the Gambia for the period 1st January 2013 to 31st December 2013, both dates inclusive, be read a second time. Honorable Speaker, the year 2012 marks the beginning of implementation of the Program for Accelerated Growth and Employment, PAGE, which is the Gambia's Development Strategy and Investment Program for 2012-2015. The PAGE aims to accelerate and sustain economic growth and development while creating employment opportunities for Gambians in order to improve their socio-economic conditions. The government of the Gambia aims to achieve this objective through strategic investments in infrastructure, education, agriculture, tourism, health, and energy. The 2013 budget will therefore focus on the objectives of the PAGE while maintaining and encouraging fiscal prudence and placing the country on a sustainable trajectory towards inclusive growth. The PAGE has put in place appropriate mechanisms in terms of monitoring and evaluation of progress made by sectors, and the monitoring and evaluation techniques are meant to measure whether the PAGE is implemented as planned and how successfully it achieves its intended results. Honorable Speaker, fiscal prudence or fiscal discipline, as preferred by others, at all levels of government continues to be a top priority for the government, as government's fiscal position had weakened in recent years due to growing expenditure demands, which have yet to be offset by growth in revenue mobilization. The shortfalls in revenue have led to fiscal deficits, which have been financed mostly by costly domestic borrowing. A principal objective of government's fiscal policy is to sustain and gradually reduce the net domestic borrowing by minimizing government's dependence on domestic borrowing. This would not only ease pressure on interest rates, but also allow for expenditure on development projects. Along these lines, therefore, the government is implementing policies and programs supported under an Extended Credit Facility (ECF) arrangement approved by the IMF Executive Board in May 2012. The main objective of the current ECF arrangement is the reduction of the current level of net domestic borrowing to near 0% of GDP by 2015. This medium-term objective will be attained through a gradual approach by reducing the net domestic borrowing to 2.5% of GDP in 2012, a further reduction down to 1% in 2013, and finally to near 0% in 2015. The first review of progress under the program has just completed and is expected to be presented to the IMF Executive Board as soon as possible. On the global economic outlook, Honorable Speaker, the global economic recovery has been encountering major setbacks with fears of another major downturn. The financial uncertainty and sovereign debt crisis in a number of European countries escalated in 2012 with heightened concerns of debt defaults in some countries such as Greece, Italy, Portugal, and Spain. Unemployment remains high in advanced economies while incomes have stagnated. The fiscal austerity measures taken by these countries are further weakening growth and employment prospects. The fiscal uncertainty in the United States and the less than expected growth in emerging and developing economies are all contributing to the rapidly cooling global economy. The IMF World Economic Outlook projects the global economic growth to be moderate from 3.8% in 2011 to 3.3% in 2012. However, output growth is expected to pick up slightly to 3.8% in 2013. Growth in advanced economies is projected to expand by 1.3% in 2012, down from 1.6% in 2011, before picking up to 1.5% in 2013. The US economy is expected to grow by 2% in 2012, higher than the 1.8% realized in 2011. In contrast, the UK and the Euro area are expected to fall into recession in 2012. Emerging and developing economies continue to be the main drivers of global growth. Growth in the region lost steam since 2011 due mainly to the slowdown in China, India, and South Africa. Real GDP growth is estimated to decline to 5.3% in 2012 from 6.2% in 2011. In sub-Saharan Africa, economic growth is expected to remain robust in 2012 and 2013, aided mainly by strong domestic demand and favorable commodity prices. However, the near-term outlook for middle-income countries in the region, including South Africa, are tepid and giving those countries strong trade and financial links with the developed world. Growth is therefore projected at 5.3% for the region in 2012 and 2013. Global inflation has been slowing as pressures on food and fuel prices eased following a surge during 2011. Consumer Price Index in advanced economies is expected to decelerate to 1.9% in 2012 from 2.7% in 2011, thanks to lower commodity prices and slack economic activity. Inflation in emerging and developing economies is forecast to fall to 6.1% in 2012 from 7.2% in 2011. Improved climatic conditions in sub-Saharan Africa in 2012 are expected to be a damper on the region's high demand for imported food products. With the prospect for subdued global commodity prices, inflation in the region is expected to decline from 9.7% in 2011 to 9.1% in 2012 and 7.1% in 2013. Honorable Speaker, let me now turn to developments in the domestic economy, starting with the real sector. Economic growth in the Gambia during the year was largely affected by the recent drought experienced in the agricultural sector, which led to a contraction of agricultural production of about 60%. Consequently, real GDP growth is estimated to decline to 3.9% compared to its initial projection of 5.5% in 2012. With the exception of 2011, economic growth has been quite moderate, with a 3-year average of about 6%.